Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of the SBS Placement Podcast. We're here every week and each episode to explore different students' experiences, becoming a competitive applicant in the placement job market, as well as bringing in some employers to share their experience of working with students. So if you have any suggestions on what you'd like us to cover or would like to volunteer yourself to come on the podcast, please email us at placements.sbs@sutton.ac.uk. Now, this week, we're lucky enough to be joined by two of our students in final year who have returned from their placement last year, both doing their placements in finance at the same company, but I'll allow them to introduce themselves. So if I can hand over to Dan first.
Yeah, hello everyone, I'm Daniel. I do accounting and finance, obviously with the placement year, and I was working at University Hospital Southampton as part of my placement year.
And Tom?
Hi everyone, I'm Tom. I, like Dan, did a placement at the University Hospital Southampton NHS Trust, also in finance, and I'm a business management student.
Okay, brilliant. So you were both placed at the same place, pretty much doing the same role on rotations, I believe. But how long did it take you to kind of secure that placement with the University Hospital Trust, and what was the process like for you to securing your placement? If we start with Tom.
Yeah, so mine was actually quite a quick one. We were at the start of the pandemic in the end of March, and I was still looking for placements, and I stumbled upon this one and applied. It was, I think it was definitely a CV. I'm not sure if there was a cover letter, and then following that, just a straight interview, but it was done online, so through Zoom. And then I think it was a couple of days later, they gave us some feedback and sort of informed you whether you'd secured it or not. But yeah, it was quite a quick process for me.
Yeah. And how many placements did you apply to before this one? Was it kind of quite a few?
I think something in the region of about 27, something like that.
Yeah.
But obviously this is the March time, so the April time. So there was quite a lot of time, and my first one I'd sent off was in August. So a good 6 months or so.
Okay. And how about yourself, Daniel? Is it the same kind of
Yeah, so like Tom said, since September I was, applying to multiple different, placement years, and some of them would take ages. Online tests, cover letters, want you to answer multiple questions. I was convinced in second year I was spending more time applying for placements than I was in my actual degree. But yeah, luckily, thanks to the business school, got an email with this advertisement as a finance assistant for UHS. And compared to all the other placements I applied to, it was the quickest process. And it was also beneficial because I know this specific placement only is recruiting from the University of Southampton. So that means competition was minimal compared to all the other places I was applying to. It was almost like within the week, handed off my CV, had an interview and got the job basically. So yeah, it was very convenient.
Yeah, so that highlights kind of one of the benefits that we always say about our exclusive placements, companies coming directly to us to recruit Southampton Business School students. It's a fairly simpler process. You've kind of got direct contact with that company, and like you said, it's quite a quick turnaround for some of these roles, which is really good. So you kind of touched on a little bit there, Daniel, but how did you find the placements team helped with finding your placement, and also whilst you were on placement, because like you said, you were recruited and kind of working during the COVID-19 pandemic and in the NHS. So how did you find that helpful?
Yeah, so very helpful. Obviously, in first year and second year, you have the help from the placements team, getting you to, make your CV as good as possible, multiple courses on that, as well as cover letter. So, yeah, by the time I was applying for my placements, I had a well-structured CV. Obviously helped with the beginning stages. And then, as I just said, they helped with, actually finding a placement. They emailed quite a lot of different placement opportunities to us. Obviously, if you're applying for a placement, don't just think you need to apply externally. Make sure you're checking your emails and see what the business school are sending you, because obviously that's benefited me and Tom. During placement, have a few calls within the year just to check up on everything. I had Rochelle. Rochelle also is in a meeting with me, myself, and my mentor from UHS, just to check that everything's okay. Fortunately for me, everything at UHS was perfect. My mentor was amazing. So I didn't really have any problems. But if there was to be a problem, then you could, talk to Rochelle about it, or whoever your placement advisor is from university, and they could help you during your placement.
Yeah. Tom, anything to add on that? How did you utilize the placements team when you're looking for
placement? To add to Dan's point there about the emails and also the placement team's jobs board, I was sort of at that pivotal point where it was so late in our academic year, and in a normal year you start your placement in the July, and I was at the point where I didn't think I was going to secure one, and if it wasn't for that email or the jobs board checking it regularly, that the placement team supply, I could have very easily not have done a placement, not out of choice, but out of just not being able to secure one. But and as Dan mentioned, obviously we had the contact throughout, and it was always an ever-changing situation because of the pandemic, whether that was the part of going into the office or having to work from home, and obviously that then brings a whole new dynamic for mental health as well as like health and safety within an office environment. So there was a lot of support and frequent conversations just to make sure everything was ticking over quite nicely. As you'd know, being my placement advisor.
Yes, I do remember having to check where everyone was working from home in the office, especially I had a couple of you guys, different NHS trusts, and being I suppose in the NHS they were frontline workers, but finance is a little bit behind the scenes, so just checking in on you guys and seeing how you're okay. So it sounds really good, and it sounds like you were really committed to doing that placement year. So in terms of your expectations of a placement year, what you're expecting to happen or get out of it, and kind of the realities of it, especially doing it, like we say, NHS, COVID-19, how did those compare? So if we go back to Tom, start with Tom.
Yeah, I think it was, obviously none of us could have expected the pandemic, and none of us could have expected having to work from home. So in fact, Dan and I's placement was delayed by just over a month. I think it was about 6 weeks, the start date, to try and ensure that we could start in the office. But then because of that, we then found that there was a blended approach to work anyway, just in the sense that it was safe at that time in the summer. However, they also wanted to be as safe as possible, and if someone wanted to work from home, they'd support that. And it wasn't, obviously, the changes throughout the year, as I previously mentioned, meant we had to adapt quite quickly. But then the support, I was very pleased with what we got, and from both the university and our employers. And to be honest, I'd say I was pleasantly surprised to see how much I did enjoy it, because with rotating through different departments, I was surprised that you're not always going to enjoy everything you do. And with trying so many different things, you typically go, oh, there's something I don't enjoy. But that wasn't the case personally. I found it exciting to try all these different things and sort of learn some new skills.
Yeah. Dan, anything to add to that? Expectations versus reality?
Yeah, well, I guess, they got the basic one of everyone expects they're going to be in office, working, waking up, getting dressed in their smart clothes, going to office, whereas the reality was you'd probably wake up a lot later, which was nicer. You'd put a shirt on, but you'd probably have jogging bottoms on the bottom half. So, there's definitely a more relaxed approach to it. Everything's done online. Many people said it would be quite challenging, but I think the power of Teams helped a lot because, you get that face-to-face interaction still, and there's a screen share feature on Teams, which I found really helped me, because as in the office, they would show you how to do it, then you do it. You can simply do that from wherever now, thanks to capabilities. Obviously the working from home. I think something that also was different that I realized was when you think of finance, you kind of just think of number crunching and not much else for a profiting company. When working for the NHS, you actually realize that many people are working for the good cause. They're working because their financial work is going towards the helping of patients instead of just for a profiting company. So it was definitely something that I was enlightened by. Like, finances isn't all about just raking in like money or anything. You could do it towards something you care about as well. And obviously, the standard thought of finance, you might think it's the city life, living in London and all, but it was a hospital environment. So yeah, that was definitely different towards the standard expectation of working in finance.
Yeah. And a bit off the cuff, but so you guys, Daniel, you're doing accounting and finance, and Tom, you're doing business management. I know that you kind of geared a few of your modules towards that finance, but how did you find it joining a finance role? Had you been like well prepared going in, or how did kind of your education feed into starting there? If we start with Dan, because you're doing accounting and finance, so you're probably a bit well prepared for that.
Yeah, so funnily enough, I found most of the stuff I was learning was quite new to me. It was quite hard to relate my degree to the job because a lot of things are process based.
Right.
But with that being said, I do think, because lots of things are becoming automated, so essentially the systems are doing most of the work. You just got to know what to do with the system and whatnot, and how to do formulas in Excel to get the system to do it for you. But I do think obviously you do need to have that understanding and that base of knowledge to actually know why you're doing it and what you're doing it for. So then obviously there's always problems in the works. So the degree of my my accounting modules, for example, would help me if there was a problem.
Yeah.
But yeah, as a whole, I definitely think you could probably get away with just like memorizing the processes of everything and getting away with in some of the job roles anyway. I think working your ladder up in a finance department would then probably require that base knowledge more.
Yeah. How did you find it, Tom, coming in from business management into a pretty heavy kind of rotational finance placement role?
Yeah, so I'd actually agree with Dan quite significantly there about where you find that when you go into work, you're learning about how to do the job.
Yeah.
But then that base knowledge does give you the tools to be able to do that and understand it better.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing I've always said, and I will always say going forward, is that I feel like your degree doesn't necessarily teach you for a specific job, because unless you're doing it for that specific job, as an accountant, say. However, it does teach you the ability to learn, and that's the transferable skill that goes into work. And that's the whole bit there where Dan and I had rotated into 3 or 4 different departments, or even more in the end. And by doing so, you had to adapt. And the other thing is we could take skills we learned from one rotation into the next, and they were transferable across within that job. So yeah, I'd definitely say that it didn't link as much, but I'd say more so maybe than Dan's through management. There's subtle things I learned. So like in management, we do about like management organization theories and sort of motivators and how to deal with people in that respect. And I wouldn't say it directly related to the job, but when you're dealing with the people, you could then see how certain people were motivated differently, for example, and you could then use that to how to work with people better and sort of get the best out of the teams as well as yourself.
Yeah, definitely. So it kind of gives you that like underlying theoretical knowledge and ways you can see those things, like those management styles and things like that, and then seeing that applied in the workplace, you get to experience it, I guess, and that's like a really pivotal thing to be able to apply that knowledge, which is really good. Like, and from both your perspectives, accounting and business management. Yeah, that's good. Amazing. So one thing I like to always ask as well, was there anything in your placement that was kind of completely unexpected? I think you've touched on a few things that you saw that were a little bit new, but anything that happened completely unexpected for you guys? Tom, do you want to start first?
Well, we've mentioned it previously with COVID-19, but Dan and I both picked up some extracurricular stuff on top of our day-to-day work. So trying to help out with whether that's like a vaccination program that they had that centre going around, or just anything. As Dan mentioned previously, it was interesting to see how it wasn't just a finance job, it then became part of a wider community, and you're always trying to help those around you in that community that's built there at UHS. So I was quite surprised in myself. Like I've always been someone who's considerate to others, but I was surprised at how I sort of ate up to their community feel, and generally felt a part of that community. And I mean, I'm sure Dan will agree as well, because we still have contact with them even since moving. So like moving on and come back to uni. So yes, I think that was the biggest thing that I was surprised at. And also, I generally say that there's not a single bad soul that works there. You know, you always get used to saying you're not always going to have people you get on with to work with. But I would say that they're genuinely my biggest takeaway from UHS was the people that work there are all lovely. So yeah, that was probably my biggest takeaway.
Yeah,
anything unexpected for you, Dan?
Just following on from Tom, it's quite similar. Obviously, they were all due to COVID, you know, NHS were understaffed and whatnot, so they took some people from the finance department to help with the COVID work that needed done regarding the vaccinations and whatnot. So for a month, I took a month out of my time in financial control to be part of the vaccinations booking team. So I was just booking staff's appointments and whatnot. So yeah, that was unexpected. You know, I essentially did 11 months in finance and then 1 month vaccination booking team. But it's all for the good cause. I was happy to volunteer for that. Tom was more hands-on because I was actually located in Surrey because I didn't get accommodation for that year. Right. Whereas Tom was actually more actually in the hospital doing more like labour and whatnot.
Yeah.
But you make it sound like I was giving the gems down. I wasn't. I was just admin typing next to the nurses.
Yeah. And I guess another unexpected thing was that me and Tom essentially ran the UHS Christmas party as well.
Wait, I forgot about that.
So just two newbies like running the Christmas party was quite funny.
Yeah. And how was that? Was it like an event, or was it because obviously we're in the middle of COVID? Could you get all together, or how did that happen?
Yeah, so it was quite.
Go ahead, Sam. Go ahead.
Thanks, Sam. It was obviously in the height of the pandemic.
Yeah.
And I still think to this day it was the highest point. So it was all online, and so Dan and I had to be quite creative and come up with some tasks and like I guess events, but virtual events that we could do and sort of get everyone involved in online. But yeah, is there any event in particular, Dan, that you'd say that was your favourite? Or
I think that a funny one was a scavenger hunt. So we did breakout rooms and people were in teams, and then there's just a list of things they had to get from their houses. So basically, so it's kind of like it's not just everyone sat at their computer. We're getting them to move around as well. Yeah. So people are just coming back with like unique items, and I can't actually remember everything that was on it, but it's quite funny to see like the senior people in the finance team coming back with all these like strange like big leaves and from the garden and stuff.
Oh no, it's brilliant. And I think like you say, it was all online, and I think everyone had got a bit Zoom quizzed out, hadn't they? So everyone was trying to think of new things. So scavenger hunts became a really fun thing, and I saw a couple of people doing things like you had to join the meeting like wearing the funniest hat you could find in your house or like something like that, and it was really good. Wow. So 11 months in finance, 1 month in admin, and a couple of weeks in event management then, so for you guys as well. Party planning, that's good. Cool. So what would you each say, we'll start with Dan, I guess, we'll go to Dan first, was the highlight of your placement year, like one thing that you've really taken away from being on placement?
I'd say the highlight for me, two things really. Firstly, I think the 3-month rotation was like the ideal situation for me because I was going into my placement year, not knowing which area of finance I'm best suited to. So the 3-month rotation was definitely a highlight and definitely an appeal of this placement because it exposed me to multiple different roles. I mean, even roles outside of finance, as we just said. So like great exposure. I think that was definitely enlightened me into kind of what area I'd probably more prefer to go into. And additional to that, I think another highlight was my mentor, and Tom can probably vouch for his mentor as well. They were just so nice, so supportive. Any kind of time we had, it was informal catch up. They were basically like a friend to us, and it was just it was really comforting. And if we had any problems or wanted more opportunities, just like tell them, and they'd basically get it done. So they were definitely a highlight of my experience as well.
Yeah. How about yourself, Tom? What was your highlight for the placement year?
So Dan's only just gone and stolen my answers, but But yeah, I definitely agree. The rotation was amazing because if there was a point where you might have found yourself getting a little bit stuck with what you were doing, not in the sense of you'll find it too difficult, but in the sense of you just need something to freshen it up.
Yeah.
The rotations worked really well to just for us as people who just want to come in and have that enthusiasm to just learn as much as possible. Yeah. That rotation allowed us to do so. And then following that, our mentors, were amazing. They really were so supportive. And this, obviously, as we mentioned, in like a really difficult time, which I actually found that. So as Dan mentioned, I lived in Southampton on my own at the time, and in a weird way, that through teams as well, and through not just those people, there's several other members of UHS that were also supportive and sort of helped get through that period, and in the weirdest way possible, make it enjoyable. Not just the work, but I mean life in general. Like, it's quite commonplace for Dan and I to wake up, work, and then you've got your evening, of which you're not really meant to be leaving your house, so we're just stuck. So that was sort of like a life, and you wouldn't really have a life in that respect. However, they made it important that we did, or felt like we did. Then there were even times where there were certain members that I remember finishing a day of work at like 5ish, and we stayed on chatting to about 6, half 6, just talking about football. But that wasn't something that he had to do. It's just something that he did, being a genuine person. So I'd definitely say the highlight for me there has to be the people.
I think taking away from what both of you just said today is that the community feel around University Hospital Southampton is really good, and maybe that comes from being, in that medical profession. They kind of understand the importance of loneliness and mental health, and especially in the pandemic, no one wanted anyone to suffer and be put out. So it sounds like there was a really great community at the UHS. So that's a really nice thing to take away from this. So I like to finish then. We've had your highlight, but what would be your one piece of advice for a student either looking to secure their placement or thinking about doing a placement, or going into their placement next year? What would be your kind of one piece of advice? We'll start with Tom.
So I'd say if you break that down to whether you should do one, the answer is yes.
Yeah.
The advice for whilst you're on it is trying to be as inquisitive and open as possible. So if you do get a new experience that presents itself to you, take it and try and do as much as you can, because this is very much the only time you're ever going to get to try something. Because once we graduate and we go into the real world, you can't just go in, try something, go, oh, you know what, I don't like this, and then go. It doesn't really work like that. So this is the great time to try something new, and you never know what you might find, something that you love and that you want to do therefore afterwards. So I would say just be open-minded and be inquisitive.
Dan, how about you? What would be your piece of advice to someone looking at doing a placement year?
Yeah, again, similar to Tom, I definitely recommend doing it. Especially, I think if you find, I don't know of anyone who had a 3-month rotation scheme, so that's why I can say if you're a bit indecisive, I think UHS is a great placement to start. If you'll find out definitely what you prefer. Regarding something when you're on placement, I definitely have to say, if you want further opportunities, just ask. Me and Tom had meetings about fraud within the NHS, which was very interesting. And they were very happy to give us opportunities as a placement student, because they know we're there just to learn and get a feel for what's going on. So they wouldn't be doing their job if they weren't giving you opportunities. So don't be afraid to ask. And definitely recommend doing it. You'll be enlightened, and usually get a salary, so it's nice for your final year. Have a bit of money,
bit of a cushion to come back with when you're going into final year. Yeah, absolutely, and it's really, really key. I think I always do say, if you don't ask, the answer is always going to be no. But if you do ask, then you might find out something new and might open up a whole new kind of avenue or opportunity for you. So always ask, because the worst that's going to come back is no, sorry, can't do that. And then you just move on and carry on doing your job well. But that's brilliant. Okay, guys, thank you so much for kind of volunteering your time and talking to me a bit about your experience on your placements in finance with the University Hospital Southampton. It's been really helpful. As I said at the top of the podcast, if anyone would like to come on and join us, speak to us, or have a topic that you would like us to discuss, then email placements.sbs@sutton.ac.uk.